3 and outs in a possession that ended with a fumble. By the time his day was done after 2 quarters at Soldier Field, the Bills led 34-6 between chants of "We want Justin." Then the crowd erupted when Fields entered the game. Bears fans have made it clear they want Fields to start. After hearing jeering and chants on the Fields name during Andy Dalton's series, the rookie responded like a pro.
I noticed it. Of course, the fans are awesome, getting me out there, but they also have to realize, Andy's a human being too. Andy's out there on the field right now. So I really just think it's kind of disrespectful to Andy, them cheering my name out like that. And, they have to, trust in coach to, make sure he's making the right decisions and, just cheer Andy on. Like that's not helping Andy play better than cheering my name. That's not doing none of that. So, I would say, my advice to them would be just cheer for who's out there playing on the field.
What more do you want this kid to do?
Yeah, being a class act, a leader, excellent teammate out the gate. Max, who should start for the Bears?
Now, I have a very different reason for saying this. The answer is Andy Dalton. Who gives him the best chance to win? Justin Fields. Who did I think was the guy who, when he fell to 11, and I'm a Giants fan, well, we have Daniel Jones. Yeah, Daniel Jones has a chance to be good. Justin Fields has a chance to be great. Get the great quarterback. Okay, no, they trade the pick. Okay, I get it. They got Hall for him and Gettleman and the whole thing. His job tied to Daniel Jones. I get it. I love Justin Fields, and I was urging the Bears to trade up for him leading up to the draft. Even if they had to move up a little bit to get, Justin Fields is a difference maker. That's why you have to protect him right now. 2 reasons. 1, when you hand him the ball, you have to make sure it's not like what happened to Tua last year. You take it back from him, you sit him down, up, down, we don't know. When you hand Fields the ball, this is the Chicago Bears, one of the most iconic franchises in the history of worldwide sports, basically. The 85 Bears were such a thing. I always bring this up. There was an SNL skit, Saturday Night Live, before your time, where in the middle of the Bulls run, right, they're winning the championship every year, Michael Jordan, it was the Bears, right? Because that's how popular, the 85 Bears means greatness in a way maybe no other sports team means. The 85 Bears. They have never had a good quarterback. This franchise has been waiting 36 years for a Super Bowl, has never had a good quarterback. They may have a great one now. Don't mess that up. That's 1, okay? 2, how could it get messed up besides him just not being consistent enough as a rookie? I don't want to see him get killed behind that offensive line. He almost already did. That offensive line, look, Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, he was once a good quarterback, right? He's still serviceable. Right now, if I'm the Chicago Bears, he's a tackling dummy. He's a tackling dummy until we get that offensive line straightened out. Sorry, that's what I'm doing. Because you can, and I know Fields gives you the best of Trubisky and Foles. He can outrun the defenders, and he can throw the ball down the field, right? So behind a bad offensive line, he is safer than, say, Nick Foles. And you can still win, unlike with, say, Mitch Trubisky. But because of all that, I am not getting that kid's head knocked off. That is a terrible line protecting the passer. I want to see them get continuity, build that up, let Fields get even better, more consistent, and then I'm making the switch, and I'm not looking back for 15 years.
Now, Max, you just proved why Justin Fields should be the starter. Look at all the positives you just said about Justin Fields, right? Now, one of the things I did not like that Andy Dalton said that it's his time now, right? If it was Andy Dalton's time, his time was last year when Dak Prescott
he meant now, like in the next minute or two.
Well, I'm telling you, he had the opportunity last year when Dak Prescott went down and he threw for 14 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That was his time. Or his time was in 2019 when he threw for 16 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. His time is not right now. You want to know who time it is right now, Max? Justin Fields. Why? Because that Chicago faithful that you talked about deserves a spark. They deserve a winner. They deserve a guy to make them buy more tickets for 10 more plus years. That's what the Chicago faithful deserves. When you look at Justin Fields, right, he's electrifying. I looked at the game this past weekend. Andy Dalton, first 3rd down, he gets sacked, can't elude pressure. There's another opportunity, couldn't elude pressure. I look at Justin Fields, 4th and 3. What does he do, Max? With his legs, he picks up the 1st down. It's a reason why the fans are booing. They're booing because they don't want to see the Red Rifle. They want to see that young gun under the helm, taking ownership of this football team and leading the Chicago Bears to possibly a division title. They're going to have to go through the Packers first with that defense that they have. But if they have Andy Dalton as the quarterback, I don't think they even have a chance. I think the players know that. I think the coaching staff knows that. But I think Matt Nagy is just being stubborn right now. And I don't like how he's handling the situation. You don't go in saying that Justin Fields is your backup and Andy Dalton is my starter. Why did you draft him in the first round? You have a quarterback competition. That's your job as a head coach. You just don't go in and name a guy, Andy Dalton, who hasn't showed you anything in the last 2 years as being a quarterback. You have to have a quarterback competition.
What if he
Give
wants
this
him to
young gun.
sit, like he saw what happened with Patrick Mahomes, who sat a year and then he came out and crushed it?
But then it can go both ways, Molly. We've seen what happened to Hugh Jackson with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. That ended sour. Hugh Jackson lost his job. We've seen it last year with the LA Rams.
Hugh Jackson lost his job because he did a very bad
But
job.
still, we look at the Chargers last year, Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor. If Tyrod Taylor doesn't get hurt, do we even know if Justin Herbert is the guy he is right now in the NFL? We don't know. We don't know.
That's a good point. Herbert was, and maybe Justin Fields is that guy too. One of the reasons Herbert had arguably the greatest rookie season in the history of football, like he's on a short list, is because it was so unlikely. It was so unlikely for a rookie to perform that way.
Yeah.
You're right. Maybe Justin Fields is that too. An extreme outlier. And Herbert also went a little lower down than than the two other guys, right? A third, but and Fields went fourth. But still, the idea is he wasn't seen by draft day as like one of the top two guys. That's a very strong point. I would bring up this. Short-term interest can interfere with your long-term health. It's the way the rules of the game are set up. It could be like energy policy, right? The climate's changing, but we need energy now, right? Let's keep burning fossil fuels. But the climate's changing, right? Short-term interest is what you're talking about, Justin Fields, 100%, no doubt about it. I'm afraid that those short-term incentives are so strong that you wind up compromising your long-term interests, because your long-term interests is Justin Fields. And I don't want to see that compromised. It's possible that you're right. There's no doubt about it, that because he can move, he's better suited behind that offensive line. Because we saw what Justin Herbert did last year, Fields can do something similar. I would also remind you it was a great experience for Herbert last year. It's not like he wouldn't have been great in his second year, right, either.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Chargers challenged last year, and it ain't like the Bears are going to challenge this year.
But I got to tell you what I'm worried about, though. I'm worried about that this locker room understands and knows that Justin Fields is that guy. But Matt Nagy goes with Andy Dalton. Now you create division in your locker room. That's what I'm worried about, Molly.
That's
No,
always
a huge
always
concern.
the issue.
I was just going to ask you this. Why do you think there's such a philosophy change? When it was the days of Peyton Manning, it was like year 3. That's when a quarterback would really go out and show out. And now it's right out of the gate, guys are getting thrown into the fire. Is it just because they're more pro-ready?
I think they might be more pro-ready, but I think it's just the will that teams want to win now. And they understand the pressure from probably management. They understand the pressure from fans.
Yep.
And I'll say other things about Justin Fields. I think the NFL wants a Justin Fields instead of Andy Dalton as well, because that brings a better product.
Huge market. By the
Well, I
way,
would
here's
say
their
this.
schedule right now. No slouch out of the gate. He would be facing the Rams. Obviously, Matthew Stafford would be there at the helm for the Rams.
I would say this. I think the answer as to why quarterbacks start sooner now,
Yeah.
number one is the realization that while they're on their rookie deal, it frees, you're underpaying a potentially
That's a good
great
point.
player by so
Yeah.
much, you have more resources to get. So everyone
Better
sees that
team,
rookie
yeah.
deal window as the time to do it. And even in the first year, if they're not great, the most persuasive argument, I think, is get them the experience now.
Mm-hmm.
I would remind people, Patrick Mahomes, who is already the best I've ever seen do it. Like, apologies to everyone. In terms of the very best I've ever seen, I think it's Patrick Mahomes.
Hold on
right?
now you
Yeah.
talking crazy.
Not crazy? I'm
You're
talking crazy.
You're not going to dismiss Aaron Rodgers.
I'm not dismissing anyone. Rodgers is 1B for
Well, you kind of are.
You're not going to dismiss Aaron.
Wait.
if you-
Not in the wide receiver's eyes. You're not going to do that today, Max. You're not going to
Who's the greatest
discredit
running back
A-Rod.
of all time? Who's the best running back you ever seen?
I go Walter Payton.
So you're dismissing everyone else. You're right. No, you're not dismissing everyone else. Both of you stop that. Nice try, though. The point is, Mahomes is incredibly great. By the way, you want to bring up
But how can you say he's
want
the
to bring
greatest
up
of all
Aaron
time?
Rodgers? Hold on, I'm not going to get sidetracked. But we can get into that in another debate, and I will prove my point. You want to say it's Aaron Rodgers? Fine. Neither one of them started as rookies. The reason I bring up Mahomes is because he's doing it now. And he sat, except for maybe one start, the whole year behind Alex Smith. And he was protected, and he learned.
My point, Molly. He sat behind Alex Smith,
Yeah.
a guy who could play the game of football. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre, a guy who could play the game of football. I'm not sitting Justin Fields behind the red rifle, Andy Dalton, who I know probably can't play anymore.
Look, that is
That was your best point of the day.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That is no question the difference here. But Garoppolo and Trey Lance,
a different
to me,
caliber.
is more like Alex Smith and Mahomes. It's more like Alex Smith.
Do you think that's a fair comparison, Garoppolo to Alex Smith?
No.
You're quick to take Alex Smith over Garoppolo? Alex Smith is good, so is Garoppolo.
Who won more?
Longevity.
Actually, Garoppolo's winning percentage is absurd.
Who's more durable?
But we're getting sidetracked again.
No, we're not, Max. We're giving points. We're giving you facts, Max. You don't like the facts.
You want to? Okay, fine.
We're giving you facts.
I will stop down and beat you both in this argument.
No.
So Alex Smith was more durable throughout his career, in spite of some catastrophic injury, right? Than Jimmy Garoppolo, who's much earlier in his career. If you want to argue who had more success when they were on the field at an earlier point in the career, the answer is clearly Garoppolo. How many Super Bowls has Alex Smith gone to? And as I pointed out, Garoppolo did it for a team that couldn't buy a win when he wasn't playing, right? But I'm not trying to get bogged down then. I'm simply saying Garoppolo's a proven winner in the NFL right now, like at a different level than Andy Dalton. So Garoppolo, Trey Lance is more like Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes. I agree with that. That's why my reasoning for Justin Fields is a little different here. My reasoning for Fields is if they had a good offensive line, I'd go with you. They have an awful offensive line. I don't want to see the kid get his head taken off. It's already happened once in preseason when things are simplified. They can't protect the passer. That's the problem with Chicago.
Well, that's why I said the last time I was on this show, it's key for the Chicago Bears, Max, to get their protection squared away. That was just a simple misprotection by the offensive line. But we look at other plays with Justin Fields. He has eluded that pressure.
Yep.
He has picked up things with his legs, first downs, giving his team a spark. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. You don't want to lose a locker room. You don't want to lose your fan base. And you don't want to lose everybody else.
I think the locker room is the
number one,
strongest
you
point.
don't want to lose your job.
Yeah, I think the locker room is the strongest point. That's the real danger is you can lose a team if it's clear to everybody in the room that dude should be starting, not that.
Are you hearing that's what the team wants? I mean, we know it's what the fan wants.
I mean, they're human beings.
I'm not hearing that right now, but I know what my eyes tell me, Molly.
Yeah,
my eyes
fair
won't
enough.
deceive me. They haven't since I've been born.
Fields is spectacular. There's no way anyone in that locker room is not thinking, oh my God, look at this guy.
Yeah, they're probably thinking it under the table right now.
All right, we got a lot more to get to. Coming up, could this be Tom Brady's best season ever? We've got fascinating quotes from the 7-time champion coming up after the break. Dan Orlovsky will come through. Also, staying in the AFC South, unlike in Tampa, the Saints quarterback picture is very unclear right now. Should it be Jameis or Taysom? We dive into that after this quick break. First Take.
They call me.
What's going on?
You ready to do this thing, man?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the 49ers, buddy.
You don't have to guess who in the building.
I want to be a leader for these guys.
Never catch me slacking, I was growing, that's the illest.
Looking forward to just getting out there and competing and learning as much as I possibly can.
Good day. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. I hope you had a fabulous weekend. Max Kellerman's in the building. Former receiver Harry Douglas. Good to see you. The fit is fresh.
On Harry.
Thank
I
you,
like
thank
all
you.
of it. Mr. Stephen A. Smith is hosting Jimmy Kimmel tonight. So make sure to check that out. I bet you he's actually a little nervous. He doesn't get nervous about anything, but that's a pretty big deal. But I think he'll kill it. So looking forward to seeing that this evening. Speaking of killing it, 49ers rookie quarterback Trey Lance has started slow, but at the end, fellas, he found a rhythm versus the Chargers. In 30 snaps, he went 15-10 for the in the 15-10 win. Lance finished 8 of 14, for 102 yards with 2 TDs and an INT. Jimmy Garoppolo is 3 of 6 for 15 yards and an INT. Asked if he's seen anything that would change how he views the initial plan of Garoppolo as the starter and Lance as the backup. Here's Kyle Shanahan.
Are you going to make an announcement? Is Jimmy Garoppolo your starter week 1?
No, I'm not making that announcement. Let's try though. Whenever I feel like it. Not tonight.
That's good.
When will you name your week 1 starter?
When? It's hard for me to give a date when it's based off of when we know when we feel like naming it. So whenever that happens, but I promise it'll be by that Sunday.
Okay, Harry, you know what it's like to catch passes from a signal caller. Tell me this, does Lance give the Niners a better chance to win?
I'll say yes. He gives them a better chance to actually make it to the Super Bowl, and not just make it to the Super Bowl, Max and Molly, win a Super Bowl, right? When you look at John Lynch, the GM for the 49ers, and you look at Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, they traded up to draft Trey Lance as a difference maker. That's what they wanted, right? So you look at Jimmy Garoppolo and you look at Trey Lance, what is that? a difference maker, right? He can do what Jimmy Garoppolo cannot do. That's use his legs. Now, you look at the NFL today, you look at what's trending, right? That's the quarterback, mobile quarterback. You look at Mahomes, you look at Deshaun Watson, you look at Russell Wilson, you look at Josh Allen. That's what's in right now in the National Football League. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo can't do the things that he can do. Now, let's take it out to the field, Max. Let's take it out to the field where you can design QB runs, right, zone read, things like that for Trey Lance. Then you move down to the red zone. Now you have to account for a Trey Lance. You have Jimmy Garoppolo in there, you don't have to account for him as a runner. So I think it's best to say that Trey Lance actually gives them the best opportunity not to only make the Super Bowl, Molly, but to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, I think that's definitely true going forward. I mean, that's why you spend all the draft capital to move up and grab him. And you see what's happened in the division. Seattle did it to get a safety. I mean, Seattle used draft big money safety.
Yeah.
And Arizona did it to get a receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, right? So they did it to get a quarterback. And what you see in Trey Lance is maybe the highest ceiling in a great and deep quarterback draft class. People talk about all the physical stuff, all the intangibles. If you had to pick one guy so far to represent your team, the way he carries himself, I mean, Justin Fields is showing out too, but Trey Lance might be the guy. And people talk about his processor and his willingness and his kind of like a sponge learning and all that stuff, but there's a lot to learn. He's not a very experienced quarterback. And let me tell you about the history of the NFL. In the history of the NFL, no first season rookie quarterback starter has ever been to a Super Bowl, let alone won one. Doesn't mean it's never going to happen. Records are meant to be broken. Maybe it'll be this guy, right? But that would be if you have a guy under center who's really not good. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo, whether people like it or not, we have a big sample size here because he's missed a lot of games for the Niners. When he plays for the Niners, they win 3 out of 4 games. 3 out of 4 over a course of seasons. They get to a Super Bowl. Garoppolo's not that good, then it shouldn't be hard to replace him. But what we see, Shanahan, same coach, same scheming guys, wide open, right? What we see is, with his replacement, they lose 3 out of 4 for the same team. Garoppolo is very good and underrated. He cannot do all the things that Trey Lance will eventually be able to do. But rookie quarterback versus a guy who's been to a Super Bowl, no. If you think you're ready to win, and the Niners are, you stay with the guy who you've been there with. That guy gives you the best chance still.
So here's the question, Max. I asked you this, right? When Jimmy Garoppolo was not in there at the quarterback position, who was the quarterback, right? Nick Mullins. You cannot compare Nick Mullins to Trey Lance. It's not even comparable because they wouldn't have traded up to get Trey Lance if Nick Mullins was that guy. Now, does Trey Lance have a lot to learn? He does. But he does have some things that I like. Yesterday against the Chargers, right? He did some great things, but I'll say the interception. You don't have to throw the ball so hard. Just place it in the right position for the receiver to run over it. Now, his first touchdown to Travis Benjamin, I really love what he did right there, right? It was a simple under concept. The outside guy, go up 5 yards, come in. Travis Benjamin in the slot, go up 12 yards, run an in cut. We call it a basic. Hit him in stride, touchdown. Then you come back with Mohamed Sanu. You run a double move by your tight end on the front side. He didn't like that. You run a choice route by Mohamed Sanu in the slot. Boom, the ball's on him right there, touchdown. Those are the intangibles that I love.
You know what I liked, Harry? He got better as the game went on.
Yes.
First time he got worse as the game went on.
Right.
Yeah.
My point is not that with Trey Lance, they would lose 3 out of 4. I'm sure they wouldn't. I'm sure they'd be much better than that.
Correct.
My point is just about Garoppolo.
Yeah.
People who question whether Garoppolo's good or not.
But I don't think that's what people question.
The replacement. Well, what I'm saying is if you have a guy who's good and he's a veteran and you have a team you believe might win a Super Bowl this year, I'm not putting a first-year starter who's even inexperienced at the college level. I'm not starting him and thinking I'm going to win a Super Bowl with that guy. I am thinking, you know what? He gives us a premium over Garoppolo going forward. And by the way, Garoppolo might get hurt, and it's a moot point anyway, right? That might happen. And if that happens, you just hope the best for Trey Lance. It's just, as you know better than I do, for rookies, especially at that position, it's no cup.
Let me ask you guys this. This is the toughest division in football, arguably, right?
I would say for sure.
100%.
And obviously, we know they have a top-notch running game, top-notch defense. They did lose Robert Saleh, which is going to be huge, an excellent defensive coordinator now with the Jets. But looking at this division top to bottom, according to Caesars, Rams have the best odds to win it, and then Niners. What would you say? Who do you see winning it?
I'm going to go with the 49ers with the simple fact that you look at last year, I think if this team wasn't plagued by the injury bug, they actually make the playoffs. You get Nick Bosa back. To pair him up, you got Eric Armstead, you got Javon Kinlaw, right? You have D Ford. You look at the linebackers, you have Greenlaw, you have Warner. Now, the only questions defensively, I will go with the secondary. They might not be as good, but when you have a good front seven, your secondary doesn't have to be great. They can just be decent.
Yeah.
You look offensively.
Wait, you're going with the Niners, hold up, sorry to interrupt you. You're going with the Niners with Trey Lance starting when we have all these other top-notch quarterbacks in this division.
I'm going with Trey Lance.
Wow.
Now, I would say the Rams, although I have to admit, Cam Akers, usually a running back gets hurt, no big deal. Like, in fact, when you look at how that affects the Super Bowl odds, it doesn't move it much. Because whether we like it or not, a lot of these guys are interchangeable, and that's why they don't get paid. In the sense that it's more about the offensive line. If you're a running back in the NFL, you're talented. You got a good offensive line. A great running back will get you a premium over a good one.
Which the 49ers do have.
Yeah,
you have
they
three
can
solid
run
guys.
the ball.
In McGletchey, Alex Mack, and then you have Trent Williams.
They can absolutely run the ball. I'm not questioning that with the Niners. I'm saying the Rams losing Cam Akers, I think, actually does hurt them. This is a rare case. Cam Akers was trending toward elite last year. Quick, fast, and in a hurry, right? When you put that with a Matthew Stafford and think about the way Coach likes to McVay likes to use the running back and flash and all that stuff, that's a blow to the Rams. I still like the Rams. And I think, Molly, the reason you'll hear a lot of Rams and Niners and less so, I think people are sleeping on the Cardinals, but I think less so Seattle is the defense. The Rams and the Niners can play defense. But for the Niners defense, you bring up Bosa, that's the whole shooting match to me. If he's a monster, he's a beast.
Better than his brother.
They're both beasts.
He's the best of the Bosa brothers, I'll tell you that
The
right
fact
now.
that you see Chase Young and you go, he might be better than the Bosa brothers makes you think like, oh my God, he's from another world, right? But he is an animal. If he's on the field, that changes the Niners defense. You talk about the secondary, front seven, you don't have to worry about it as much. He hasn't been able to stay on the field great, and that's the whole key to me to the Niners defense.
But he brought up a great point.
What?
Bosa hasn't been able to stay on the field. Has Garoppolo?
No, that's why they got Trey Lance.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah. All right, so
stays
you're taking
injured.
Jimmy Garoppolo to start, and you're taking the Rams to win the division, and you're taking Niners to win the division, Trey Lance to start.
That's my guy.
Question is,
It's a big take right
who
there.
in this division is not making the playoffs?
Yeah.
Someone's not going to make the playoffs. I don't know who that is.
And I'm not betting against
Cook.
Russell
Don't be
Wilson,
don't
a
be
guy
sleeping on
who's
Russ.
not scared to get on his knees and pray in church with his wife, Sierra. I'm not betting against him.
Never. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. All right, Chicago Bears fans already over Andy Dalton. Here's the deal. The veteran quarterback started Saturday's preseason game against. Y'all know Tommy Brady is like fine wine, but is it possible that he can top last season, winning a Super Bowl and sticking it to New England in the process? Brady telling Peter King of NBC Sports, it's a totally imperfect game that you're trying to do as perfectly as possible. Every day I come out, I'm trying to do it. I'm hoping this year is my best year. That's a prediction, and I'm not for that. I'm into doing the work. Is the process going to be right? I'm going to work my expletive off to get it right. Our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky, joining us now. At 44 years old, is it possible this could be his best season ever, Dan?
Absolutely. And because the pieces that remain intact with them having so much success last year are there and then some. They did all that last year, and Tom Brady threw for 50 touchdowns, and that was without a guy like O.J. Howard, who got hurt and tore his ACL. It was an ex-first-round pick that is super talented. They've got to figure out a way to use him. That was out without AB being a part of their football team for the whole offseason and in the season. How do they integrate AB a little bit more, that he's a full part of their offense now? Gio Bernard, a pass-catching tailback. And I think Tom Brady is this guy that I've often said this quote, motivation is fleeting, give me habits. He is just so obsessed with his habits. I could see Tom Brady having another big season, a better season than he did last year, because their offensive line's intact. Now he just gets to go to the line of scrimmage and completely do whatever he wants, and he'll be kept upright. He won't deal with the MCL tear. So I think Tom Brady's going to have another monster season.
It is possible. It's possible he could have his best season from a certain point of view. I would remind people, like, you take Michael Jordan, the GOAT of all GOATs, right? There are some people who could argue that actually he was a more well-rounded, complete player when they won 72 games and the championship with Pippen and Horace Grant and everything. But I just have news for everyone. Yes, he was more complete. He won as good as he was in his prime. In the first three-peat, like when he was in his first playoff series, averaging like 40 and whatever, like that dude was just different. And I'll say about Tom Brady, though, we don't usually think of him as physically dominating the way we think of some other GOATs or some of the greatest players ever. He is in a great situation for all the reasons you said, Dan. He had, by the way, he has an offensive line. They drafted guys last year. They built it up. He had, this is without Antonio Brown for a lot of last season. You bring up O.J. Howard. People forget. Yes, he was like, well, he's kind of a well-rounded tight end. He's going to block. He's going to do this. He's not known primarily as a spectacular pass catcher, but it's not like he wasn't supposed to cast pass catches. And there's a lot of room for growth there, even at that position. Right. They return all 22 starters.
That is the most unbelievable part from the Super Bowl.
It's bananas. Two things. That 06-07 Patriots team that went undefeated. They didn't win the Super Bowl. That went undefeated, though, with Randy Moss. And that Tom Brady, in terms of you just got to pluck a guy out and say, oh, my God, that guy was unstoppable. It's tough to beat that guy. And then the second thing is, guys, I hate to bring it up, but one of these days, he's going to have to get old. It's going to have to happen. You know, it's going to have to happen, right?
You banking on it? I'm not banking on it.
I obviously can no longer bank on it. I will say this. Father Time is undefeated. I thought Bernard Hopkins once upon a time fought him to a draw, and I was wrong. When Hopkins was like 50-51, he got knocked out of the ring by Joe Smith and knocked out. Eventually, Father Time comes from everyone, even if it seems like Tom Brady is way up on points at the moment.
Now, I agree with both of you guys. I agree with you, Dan. I agree with you, Max. And I want to take y'all back. I'm going to take y'all back in time, right? When I thought everything started clicking for Tom Brady in this offense last year. It was against Atlanta in the second half, right? They were down big at halftime. You know what Tom Brady figured out? He said, you know what? Why am I making this harder than what it is? I have Antonio Brown. I have Chris Godwin. I have Mike Evans. I had Gronk. I had Cameron Brate. Let me just pick the football up and just throw it to these guys and let these guys make plays. What did they do? They came back and won that football game. The following week against Detroit, Tom Brady was lights out. Everyone thinks it was that game. No, it was the second half of the Atlanta game the first time they played them. Then they play Atlanta in the last game of the year. Tom Brady was lights out. Then he goes on and win a Super Bowl. I think Tom Brady this year with an offseason, time to play with these guys, time to get timing down, time to just be around them and develop this cohesive unit. I think he can have one of the best seasons, even the season where they went undefeated before losing the Super Bowl, Max, because I can't count that season because they didn't win the Super Bowl.
If Tom Brady balls out like that, which, by the way, Dan, I thought Harry just brought up a great point, too, which is no preseason last year.
Right.
Like nothing. Practice, like guys couldn't practice and stuff. So with a whole other year under his belt and everybody returning, I'm not discounting the possibility. It would be foolish to.
Yeah, I look at it as the offensive line is everything to Tom Brady. It often has been, even at his age. Now, everyone constantly comes up to me and goes, well, why can Tom Brady play so well at his age? And I try to make people understand that Tom Brady started slowing down the hands of time 25 years ago. This wasn't something that happened over the last 10 years. This has been happening since he got into the NFL. And so whether he's 44 or 43, it doesn't matter. Guys, he threw for 50 touchdowns last year with the torn MCL. So with the offensive line attack, the 22 starters, Molly, to your point, is huge. Yeah. But for me, it's the 5 guys up front. If they had 17 starters back and all 5 new offensive linemen, I'd be super concerned. But the fact that the 5 guys up front are back, that kind of minimizes what Tom Brady's, I guess, weakness has always been, or his greatest weakness, which is pressure. They're going to keep him clean. And as long as the only thing that I thought could potentially be an issue for this football team this offseason was trying to get too cute. Thinking, well, we've got time. We've got an offseason, so maybe we will try to do more of the Bruce Arians stuff that we did at the first half of last season, that I would go on television, scream, stop doing that stuff. The only reason that Tom Brady's not going to have another remarkable year and not going to be in the MVP conversation and not flirt with another 50 touchdowns is if they get too cute. As long as they get out of their own way, he will ball.
You brought up Bruce Arians, and I'm glad you did. That was the final point for me. Bruce, I don't think, one thing about Bruce Arians, you got to give it up. That dude did not get in his own way. And if you look at every public proclamation he's made after games, it's uncanny. He has pushed the right button. Right. And if people want to say, oh, yeah, that's easy to do, really? Tom Brady gets to your team? What's your track record versus what Tom Brady's track record is? And called him out several times early in the season in front of everybody. You think any coach would do that? No, he knew, and I'm sure Brady understood. He's got to show the team everyone's accountable. But then remember the game in Chicago when Brady had the brain freeze, lost track of downs? That's when Coach got up there and lied for him, didn't he? He lied for him, a bald-faced lie. It was obvious he lied for him, and Brady saw that too. He's like, no, I don't think, and he covered for him. And every time he needs to push a button, just even this fight in training camp, right? What's coach come out and say? Damn, I thought Gruden made too big a deal out of it. I thought Arians handled it perfectly. Dan, I don't think Bruce Arians is going to get in his own way. In fact, I think it's one of the reasons Brady could be poised to have his best season ever. It's possible.
Yeah.
And Dan, you bring up two great points, right? You mentioned the first half of the season last year. It was times where I tweeted when Tom Brady just didn't look good, right? He was missing wide open guys on go routes, Antonio Brown on post routes, but you can tell he was frustrated because he wasn't comfortable, right? And then the second point you brought up, offensive line. We all know if Tom Brady gets pressured, he's not trying to escape that pressure at all. He's just going to drop down and take that sack and be frustrated. So keeping him protected and just letting Tom Brady do what he does with that offense is very key for the Bucs going into 2021 season.
Guys, they have everything. They got a couple of linebackers from hell. I mean, like they got.
Yeah, they're loaded.
Dan, I'll give you
the best tandem in the league, linebacker-wise.
Yeah, I would say this is if they stay healthy, because last year they were one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest teams in the NFL. If they stay healthy, I would be surprised if they're not back in the Super Bowl, and I would be surprised if Tom Brady's not in the MVP conversation the whole season.
And they have, by the way, we didn't even mention, they have, did we? Antonio Brown's there from the start of the year.
The entire year.
The last time Antonio Brown played a full season, he was one of the greatest receivers who ever lived.
Yeah.
Who ever lived. Not just today, ever.
And he has that attitude right now. I can see it in those practices down there. He has that MO. He has his macho back. He's back to being Antonio Brown.
Getting fired up.
You see that
Landed
left?
a clean right
You see that left jab, Dan?
Sometimes I got to do that to Max on television, Harry. You know, sometimes you just got to catch him with one.
That is someone who's caught too many of those. Delusional. A little punch drunk.
Max is getting on TB12.com right now. As the season nears, the quarterback battles around the league are heating up. Our next stop is New Orleans, site of tonight's Monday Night Football game. Which quarterback should Saints fans have? For the last decade and a half, the Saints haven't had to worry about the quarterback position, right? And now Sean Payton is more than comfortable letting his two QBs, Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, battle it out. Payton has 3 preseason games with which to evaluate the signal callers. Winston will get the start against the Jaguars. That's tonight on Monday Night Football, 8 p.m. After Hill started the season opener against Baltimore. Each had some strong plays against the Ravens and each threw an INT. Sean Payton telling our Dan Graziano, who did a good job filling in for Greeny on Get Up today. Both of these guys working their tail off. They're both well respected by their teammates. They're really, really good leaders. And that's a good thing. In the past, he's also said that both are considered starting caliber quarterbacks. Harry, you are up first. Of these two QBs, sir, who do you believe in more?
I'm going to have to go with Jameis Winston. I'm going to have to go with the guy who in his career has threw for over 9,000 yards, 121 touchdowns. Now, I know he has the interceptions, Max, because I know that's what you're going to go to. I know he's throwing the interceptions. He's part of the 30-30 club. I understand that. But I'm going to have to go with Jameis Winston because I think overall, as a whole, Jameis Winston makes this offense thrive better than Taysom Hill can. Now, you look at guys like Michael Thomas, you look at Marquez Callaway, you look at Traquan Smith, Adam Troutman at the tight end position. Those guys can thrive more in my eyes if Jameis Winston is the quarterback. Now I'm going to take it a step deeper. You look at Alvin Kamara. You don't want him to diminish, or you don't want his game to diminish because Taysom Hill is at quarterback. That's what I seen last year when Taysom Hill was starting for this football team. I seen Alvin Kamara, his numbers go down, his production go down because of the simple fact that you have a running, gadget guy at quarterback in Taysom Hill. So I'm going to have to go with Jameis Winston, Max. I'm just sorry.
Look.
You can take a deep breath.
Jameis Winston was a former #1 overall pick.
Yes.
He's a national champion.
Yes.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Yes.
He's led the league in passing yards.
Yes.
He's been to a Pro Bowl. I mean,
yes.
Come on, right? He was going to be the face of a franchise. This is a slam dunk, right? This is easy. Jameis Winston. Not to me, it's not so fast. I don't know which one of these two guys, to be quite honest. But if I had to guess, I think I would go with Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston can throw it. Taysom Hill can run it. Right? Like, let's boil it down. Jason, you know, and when you talk about the 30-30 club, when I was growing up, that meant Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds' dad. He goes 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. That's what that meant. 30 interceptions in the modern NFL. Lord. I think the reason, other than the resume, which is very impressive for Jameis, right up until you get to a little more mature part of his career in the pros, is the devil you know. You know, you don't know what Taysom Hill can or can't do. Not really. You've seen small sample sizes, and you have some suspicions, as I do. And when I say Jameis Winston's resume, it's very impressive. Taysom Hill, on the other hand, gadget player, right? But I know Sean Payton. And that's some gadget, though. He can really run. He can catch. He can throw. He can actually not just throw the ball, but actually read a defense and play the quarterback position. It's impressive. I know when Sean Payton, when we were down in Miami, and Sean Payton came on the show, he said the same thing off camera that he said on camera, which was he believes in Taysom Hill. Now, I get it at the time. Teddy Bridgewater's about to get a little more expensive. You figure you got a guy on the roster who can do what Bridgewater does. You don't have to pay the same and everything. I get it. But he had no interest that I could see, nothing to gain by hoodwinking me, right? Like, why would he actually seem genuine that he believed in this guy? Now, if you have a guy like Sean Payton saying that about a player who we've already seen surprise us, let's be honest about Taysom Hill. At first, it's like, yeah, just gadget guy. And then the more you watch him, you go, actually, he does that pretty well. He does that pretty well, too. He does that pretty well, too. And has never really been given the opportunity. If his numbers looked a little bit like Tua Tagovailoa, right, that's because he's had about the same number of reps in the pros when Tua got the ball taken away from him a bit. But they were winning. Do I think they can win with Taysom Hill? Do I think they could have a winning record? I do. And I think in the NFL, if you're throwing 30 interceptions in a year, that's hard to have a winning record. That same team, a lot of the same guys who he only won 7 games with, won the Super Bowl 1 year later when they got a guy who didn't throw 30 interceptions.
So here's my question, Max. You say they can win with Taysom Hill. Can they win at the level that's expected in New Orleans with Taysom Hill?
No.
So why would you start him?
Because I don't think you can do that with Jameis Winston either.
I think you can. I think you can.
Win a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Challenge for
He
one?
had the opportunity to sit behind Drew Brees, learn from his mistakes, understand the ins and outs of the game, right? You never get tired of putting money in the bank, man. Just take those checkdowns. He's learned that. He sat behind a Hall of Famer in Drew Brees, so he can learn those qualities.
But can he take care of the football? Let's bring in NFL Live's Mina Kimes. Mina, what are your thoughts on all this? The guys are kind of split here.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening
Beautiful shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I was listening to Max, and I was making crazy facial expressions when he said, we don't know what we have in Taysom Hill. Max, Taysom Hill's been on this football team for years. There was a season in which they decided not to start him. They went with Teddy Bridgewater because they knew what they had in Taysom Hill. We're talking about Teddy versus Drew in Denver. The Saints decided he was worse than Teddy Bridgewater. Then last season, you got 4 starts. One of them you can throw out the window because it was against the Denver's backup. 2 of them were against the Falcons' defense. Jameis is actually more of a variable at this point in Taysom because of what Harry said. You don't know if he's learned to take care of the football. You do know he can lead an explosive passing attack. And I want to talk about the turnovers because that's the main critique with Jameis Winston, and it is deserved. You do not want a quarterback who's going to turn the ball over 30 times and diminish any chance you have of winning games with this defense. But Taysom Hill fumbled the ball 10 times last year. That is 3rd in the NFL. He started 4 games, and he ranked 3rd in the NFL in fumbles. That's a different kind of turnover, and it poses a different kind of risk for this offense because you know he's going to get all of those carries. I have watched every snap of both of these quarterbacks in the preseason. I don't think either has really pulled away, but last year, both threw interceptions. I thought Taysom Hill's interception was actually worse, and to me, this is a quarterback competition that's going to go down to the wire, but Jameis Winston gives this offense more upside.
Mina, I'm glad you brought that up because when I watched that film from last week, Max, and I look at the 2 interceptions, right? One by Jameis Winston, one by Taysom Hill. The receiver for Taysom Hill is coming wide open on a 5-yard shallow route, and you missed him for an interception. Jameis Winston, his interception, he's eluding traffic in the pocket, right? Throwing the football downfield, trying to give his wide receiver a chance. Tip ball gets intercepted by the safety. I can live with that more so than I can live with Taysom Hill throwing an interception to a wide open guy who probably could have ran about 30 or 40 yards. Right or wrong, Mina?
Well,
yeah, 100%.
I agree that I'm not arguing that Jameis Winston doesn't have more upside and the much deeper, more impressive resume.
So why wouldn't you put him as a starter?
As I said, Jameis Winston turns the ball over. I think Mina makes a good point about fumbling. But Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions in a league where guys like Aaron Rodgers just mentioned, you can't have, like a lot of guys don't even want double-digit interceptions, like in the old days, 25 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Even that's like, could you get that down a little bit? Right. Man threw 30, and the next year, you brought in Tom Brady, I get it, but, he didn't throw 30 and went from 7 wins to winning the Super Bowl. Taysom Hill has limited upside, no question about it. Is his floor also lower than Jameis Winston's? I don't know about that. And the fact of the matter is, when you say, Mina, that we know what we have in Taysom Hill, what we don't know is over a full season, what does it mean for wins and losses for the Saints? Yes, if Teddy Bridgewater is available and not too much money, I would prefer Bridgewater to either guy. But once you start saying, okay, we got to spend some money on Bridgewater, then coach was like, you know what? I think Taysom Hill and maybe someone else we can bring in to push him and maybe with some more upside, maybe is like kind of the same thing we could do with Bridgewater for a lot less money. That means that coach, having seen Taysom Hill, and by the way, well, he's had him on the roster all this time. He hasn't been the quarterback. Yeah, Drew Brees has been the quarterback. He's not going to take Drew Brees' job. But can he have a winning season with him? Maybe.
They chose Teddy over Taysom for 7 games. And if Teddy was available, I think we would all agree you'd go with Teddy. But it's not between Jameis Winston and Teddy Bridgewater. It's between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. And Max, as a Saints fan, I think it comes down to this. Do you want to potentially go, 9-8, maybe sneak your way into a wild card spot, or do you want the variance that comes with the Jameis Winston season? Because what this whole Jameis experiment has been is a bet on the notion that Sean Payton can fix his interception problem. And we don't know. That's an open question. And maybe they'll put him in, he'll have a 3-pick, 4-pick game, and then they can revert to Taysom. But I think that's an experiment you want to see play out, because as we've discussed, the upside there is so much higher than what you get with Taysom Hill. And I thought Harry made an excellent point, by the way, about the weapons with Kamara, who basically disappeared in the Taysom Hill games. He leaned heavily on Michael Thomas. The whole offense was basically play-action passes to Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas ain't on this team right now. Your best weapons are Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, who looks fantastic as a deep threat, and Alvin Kamara. That is a much better group for Jameis Winston than Taysom Hill, and I think they know that.
Actually, you may have just convinced me, Mina, but not just because of the upside. I would not argue that the reason that they haven't decided yet is because it's a difficult decision, because neither one of these guys are that good, right? But the upside is one thing. But I'll tell you another thing about Jameis that may have convinced me. The downside is something else. And in fact, in the NFL, if you're going to have a bad season, have a bad season. The 9-8 thing may have convinced me because it will improve your draft.
It all boils down to this, man.
That's the truth.
You're better off
doing really well and then really bad than well and then kind of good and then kind of good and then kind. I'd rather have the variance where you take a moonshot, right? Like take a shot to be great and maybe you're really bad. That actually might convince me.
Max, you got to forgive. I think that's the problem here in this whole discussion. You can't forgive Jameis Winston for throwing those 30 interceptions. You're basing everything. You have to forgive and forget, Max. I know you was taught that growing. You have to forgive and you have to forget. That's all you have to do.
He may have a point. You kind of hold it against certain players when they disappoint.
And maybe it's time to move on. But the schedule, not easy slating. 6th hardest in the NFL. Mina Kimes sticking around here with us, guys. Expectations always high in Pittsburgh. So coming off that early playoff exit from a year ago, what should we expect from Big Ben and the Steelers? Also against the Lions on Saturday, and there's plenty to be optimistic about. Roethlisberger, 8-10 for 137 yards, 2 TDs, and passes to their new rookie tight end, Pat Freiermuth, before heading to the bench after 16 offensive plays. Here he is.
My arm feels pretty good compared to last year. I felt good, but I didn't know kind of how it should feel. It feels pretty good right now.
All right, NFL Live's Mina Kimes still here with us. Ladies first. Mina, tell me this. Is this going to be a bounce back year for Big Ben?
I think it is. I think he's going to bounce back, but the floor is so low from last season. I mean, at the end of the year, Ben was a bottom 10 quarterback, no matter how you sliced it. So improvement is relative. I watched this game with some curiosity, not just to see his arm strength, which looked fine. The deep ball was a little bit overthrown, but whether he was willing to operate within the structure of Matt Canada's offense. Because as anyone who watched the Steelers knows, last year, if Ben was the floor, the offensive line was the basement. And there are things they could do to improve upon that. It's still a developing group. One of those things is more play action, putting Ben under center, which he's been allergic to, pre-snap motion to get defenders out of their run fits. You saw some of that in the game over the weekend. You saw Ben under center, which I cannot stress enough. He does not do. He does not turn his back to the defense. but he did do it a few times on about a third of the snaps, and that was encouraging. Now, all of that said, encouraging is about as far as I'll go, because not only were they playing backups, this is still a very bad offensive line. So while we can say, yeah, Ben Roethlisberger looked a little bit more comfortable and his arms looked a little bit better, I'm still not going to get excited about this offense. I anticipate it being average at best.
Yeah, I think Roethlisberger already had his bounce back year. He came off a catastrophic injury, and they won. As a quarterback, he went 12-3. And I know a lot of people scoff at quarterback records. I'm not one of those people. I think there's a very strong positive correlation between who you run out at quarterback and the record of your team. Like Tomlin is the reason that they have never been under 8-8. He's just too competitive. He's like incapable of going under 8-8. But okay, without Roethlisberger, they won 8 games the year before. With Roethlisberger, they won 12, and he played in 15. And by the way, he did it in a really interesting way to me, which is like by being a different kind of quarterback than he'd been generally. Like throughout his career, he's a guy who hold the ball and scramble and take a hit and all that stuff. And instead, he's getting the ball out super fast. And I thought, especially early in this season, really well. But the problem is, as you said, Mina, bad offensive line. They also, can't block for the run, right? And so because Roethlisberger is not throwing the ball down the field, the defense is already playing up, making the run even worse, making it harder for Roethlisberger. It's a vicious cycle. And so they kind of fell apart at the end of the season. One thing I'll say is, it was late in the season against the Colts. Remember they came back on the Colts and Roethlisberger was kind of airing it out down the field a bit. And I was thinking, oh, look at this. Maybe there's something there. Except we saw the attrition get to him over the course of the season. So the offensive line's still not better. I don't care if you draft a running back. It's got nothing to do with anything if you can't block for him. Even if you put more of an emphasis on that, maybe it'll improve marginally. I think Roethlisberger can he have a comeback season, a bounce back season? He just had a bounce back season, reinventing himself. Are we asking him to get even better than that at the age of 38? When fundamentally things on the team haven't changed, I would be skeptical.
Max, I do not agree with you. Drafting a running back in Najee Harris, a guy we know who is a 3-down back, gave a lot of production to Alabama, won a national championship. Yes, that makes a difference. Now, what does drafting a running back like Najee Harris does? It forces the organization. It forces some pressure to make them lean on Najee Harris a little bit. Take the ball out of Big Ben's hands a little bit more. Now, that's the first point. Second point I have is last year going into this season, Big Ben was trying to groom a young receiving core, right? You look at Deontay Johnson, who I think is going to be a star one day. You look at Chase Claypool, who I think is going to be a star one day. And then you look at James Washington. These guys were plagued by drops and not being consistent. Now those guys are seasoned, have a year under their belt. They're going to come in and be better. And you got to look at this right here. You got to look at this, Max. When you look at Big Ben, look at his overall at his career. He's always had a guy as a number one receiver that he can just throw the football up to and count on them either catching the football or it being incomplete. Plexico Burress. You had Hines Ward. Then you had Antonio Brown. You had Mike Wallace.
Some pretty good ones.
Right? You had Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah. Last year, I think, was the first time he didn't have that. And I think Ben took it upon himself just to throw things up a little bit more, try to make more plays himself, and it cost him as interception.
Mina, before you get on him about this, because I see you champing at the bit, and I know you want to, I need to get back to you, because you gave me encouraging, and that's a little too vague for me, Mina. What does encouraging mean in terms of translating to wins or playoff success for this team?
Yeah, so the defense is going to be fine. There's some question marks in the secondary. This is still a very good front seven. Loved the Ingram signing. TJ Watt is awesome. Incredibly underrated defensive tackle group. They're going to be a top 10 to 5 unit. The offense just needs to be average for this to be a playoff team. They're not going to be better than the Ravens and the Browns, though, candidly. But if the offense is at least average, they can compete. That's what I mean by encouraging. But frankly, I don't see the offense being any better than that because, Harry, as much as I love Najee Harris in college, one of my favorite running backs in a while, he ain't running anywhere behind that offensive line. I don't care how good he is. I don't care if he's the second coming of Adrian Peterson. Nobody is getting yards behind that offensive line when they get hit in the backfield. And the skill players, heard you slandering them. Yes, I know they had some drops last year. Chase Claypool was getting wide open down the sideline. The problem was Ben Roethlisberger couldn't throw it more than 15 yards, so defenses were cheating up. Roethlisberger didn't get worse as the season went on. Defenses realized he wasn't going to test them downfield. Doesn't matter who your skill players are. Juju is also excellent in the slot, tough yards after the catch. If Ben can't deliver the ball, if he doesn't, last year you saw him getting it out 2.2 seconds faster in the NFL, they're not going to go anywhere, and that's not on them. That is on Ben Roethlisberger and the offensive
That's why
line.
I brought up the Colts game, Mina, because I thought when you say the word encouraging, there were some encouraging signs about Roethlisberger's arm in that game, and I do think that him talking about, like I said, I felt good, but I don't know what, like he didn't really know what good felt like compared to this year. That's encouraging, and I'll say one more thing. In Harry's defense, it's something that Villanueva said on his way out the door, which stuck with me because I hear this from guys who played in the league. If you de-emphasize the run because you're not good at blocking for the run, then the run gets worse. Talk about a vicious cycle. So I do think there's probably, that's why I said marginal with Najee Harris. There's some kind of marginal benefit to drafting a guy like that, Mina, not just because of what he can do, but because of the resources you now put into organizing your team a little bit more in that direction.
And I just want to go. Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, is going to be just as helpful to the run game. We talk a lot about pre-snap motion, those jet sweeps, and we talk about how those help the quarterback in terms of giving them man versus zone indicators. What they also do, and Harry, you know this, they get linebackers out of their fits because they're twisted up by the misdirection. That will help Najee Harris. If Ben is willing to lean into that aspect of the offense, it'll help an offensive line that is subpar by any measure.
And I'll add to that, Mina, one thing I want to tell you and Max. One thing I want y'all to understand about offensive line in the NFL. You probably have about 5 or 6 units in the NFL that are solid. All the rest of them are average. Trust me. So I think they're going to be able to make it work with this offensive line.
Wait, when you say average, do you mean that's because they're solid in 4 spots, but you got one weakness that gets exploited? Or do you mean you don't have upper-end production on your blind side, so they're going to take advantage of that? Like, when you say average, what makes them average?
I say average, you have about 2 guys who are solid that you can count on. That's what I mean by average.
All right.
Not good. Mina, that doesn't sound too good.
But listen,
guys.
But I'm telling you, you don't need your offensive line to be great. You don't need your offensive line to be great. You just need them to be decent.
Yeah, but I don't think you can have. I think the problem with listen, Mina and Harry, to me, the offensive lines that struggle are the ones with glaring weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
It seems to me Pittsburgh is likely to have at least a couple glaring weaknesses on the offensive line.
Right, all defensive coordinators are thinking about. They're looking at that offensive line and they're picking out the 1 or 2 weak links, and they are going to exploit the hell out of it every week.
But that's every week. You're looking to exploit the weakest link on the offensive line every week. If you're any team, Mina, I'll say this, right? You look at this offensive line. You look at guys who are on the offensive line now. Y'all are talking like they don't have 2 or 3 guys that's been in the system. They have 2 or 3 guys that's been in the system, that's been in Pittsburgh. So how can you just dismiss them just because of the simple fact that they haven't started?
Well, how's the system been working?
All right.
That's 1 year. That's 1 year. We're talking about 1 year.
Top 3 most difficult schedule in the NFL, and also see it flashing on your screen. Stephen A. hosting Jimmy Kimmel tonight. Must-see TV. That is on ABC, 11:30. 5 Eastern. All right, guys, are the Dolphins legit playoff contenders? And could the Patriots make a deep run to the Super Bowl? We ask and answer those questions coming up when First Take returns. Tua Tagovailoa looks sharp in his second preseason game versus the Falcons. Tua threw for 187 yards and a touchdown in one half, and the Dolphins beat the Falcons 37-17 on Saturday night. Harry's former team. Pressure has been on Tua to take the next step after his rookie season. Max, tell me this. Are you confident with Tua as the franchise quarterback there in Miami? Because we know this is a very good team.
I'd like to put it a certain way.
Okay.
I still believe in Tua.
Okay.
To say confidence like, yeah, he's got it, but I still believe in him. And it's a dangerous reason why I believe in Tua. It's dangerous. And maybe it's because I'm emotionally invested. Like we all invested emotionally in certain guys. He's one of them. I want to see it work out. It's dangerous to say this because you could apply this to Mark Sanchez when he came out, right? He looks like he embraces the pressure. He looks like a big moment kind of guy. He has that something, right? Usually those guys don't pan out. It's wish casting. You want it to be true for him, but it's not. Sometimes those guys can wind up in a good position, though. Like, it's one of the reasons Baker Mayfield went 1. He had something about him. He reminded us of Johnny Football gone right. And he was in a bad spot for a couple of years, and he looked bad. Now he's in a good spot, and he looks good. Does it mean that Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback? No. But he's a good quarterback. Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. And I think Tua can be at least a good quarterback, too. He was a big game player in college. And he started very early in his pro career, guys. He's not holding the clipboard for a whole year and then behind some veteran and then taking over. He was thrown to the Wolves early off a catastrophic injury where he didn't see action for a long time and physically was probably also affected. Now, he's a guy who, coming out, it wasn't like he has the greatest, most accurate arm. We were talking about him like he could be a left-handed Drew Brees. But a lot of that was because he would put his arm around Nick Saban like, oh, look at this young kid, embraces the big moment, seems to have that presence. But I'll tell you what, for a guy thrown to the Wolves coming off a catastrophic injury, he didn't cement his claim as I am a franchise quarterback. He didn't lose the job either. He got sat a couple times, but it's still going. And what's the last thing we saw from him in the preseason? Looked pretty good. He looked pretty good. He completed all of his passes. He looked good. He led them on drives. They scored on those drives. Am I moving off to a superstar? Yes. I don't see, like I see Justin Herbert and I see superstar. That guy's I see Joe Burrow, I think he's going to be a superstar. I don't look at Tua and think superstar. But do I look at Tua and think the way I feel about Baker Mayfield now? Like, he could be good. I do. I think he could be a good quarterback.
Well, Max, it's no secret that when you talk about Tua Tagovailoa, right, you look at him at college. He was throwing to an all-star lineup. He had all-star players around him. And the thing that I was worried about when he was coming out of college is throwing with anticipation and throwing inside of tight windows, right? That was my MO on Tua coming out of the draft. Now, you move into his rookie year last year. What was the story still? Anticipation, processing the information, understanding what's going on the football field, and understanding in the NFL, if a receiver is side by side with the DB at that level, that's open, Max. That's open. You got to give him opportunity.
Open, yep.
And I think it was the Raiders game, right, where Fitzmagic came in. And was it the Raiders game they played that night? It's national televised games. I believe it was the Raiders.
Molly, do you recall offhand?
I think it may have been the Raiders, right? And Fitzmagic is throwing with anticipation, right? Throwing with anticipation, hitting guys before they're actually making their cuts and that whole ordeal. You look at these clips that you're seeing right now on ESPN, most of these receivers are what?
Raiders game, yeah, I looked it up.
They're wide open, Max.
Right.
These guys are wide open. So I will be confident in Tua when I see him throw with anticipation, process defenses correctly on a consistent basis.
Does it make any difference to you that he was starting as a rookie?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because
so why do we say things like, and why do so many, and it sounds right to me, and I see the evidence of guys sitting behind the starter for the year, even when they're drafted very high, even when they're drafted 1 overall, and them seeming to have a smoother transition once they start in year 2?
Well, I'll say this, Max. I think something that hurts Tua is something that hurts a lot of quarterbacks that come in the league. I think it's the spread offense where you don't have to go through your reads as much, and you're just throwing to the number one read and a guy who's open, who's better than the defender that he's going against.
You're saying coming out of college?
Coming out of college.
Well, you got a lot of spread offense in the NFL now compared to the way it used to be.
But you have reads off a read. If you have a cover 2, you can't throw a 5-yard hitch route, a stop route into cover 2. You have to go to your next read. So now these guys in these spread offenses in college, they have to process information differently.
So give them some time. So that's what I'm saying. They threw him to the Wolves year 1, by the way, on a team with a surprisingly good defense. Like, remember that Dolphins team, not that long ago, we were like, is this the worst team in NFL history? Like, those kind of questions being asked, and you blinked, and that no-name defense was doing their thing, and Tua was the quarterback of a team that won more than they lost in his rookie season.
But, Max, notice what I said. I said I'm not confident in Tua right now. I'm not confident in Tua until I see him do it on a consistent basis, right? What is this NFL about, Max? Consistency. Can you do it on a consistent basis? If you can't do it on a consistent basis, then no, I'm not going to have confidence in you, nor are your teammates.
Talk to me about the AFC East. How do you see that finishing out? Would you go Bills and then Patriots, then Dolphins?
I will go Bills. I will go New England, Patriots, Dolphins.
Okay.
Not only would I also do it that way, but this is why I had Tua selected as one of my 5 guys in the NFL with the most pressure on him. Had him like 4th or 3rd or 4th or 5th. Because year 2 is the development year for a quarterback, particularly when you start year 1.
Yeah.
Because he was not that long ago, before Trevor Lawrence just like wowed everybody. It was like, boy, Tua's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Tua's going to be a superstar. Look at him. He has this thing. And now all of a sudden, he's in year 2 on a really good Dolphins team. Like, if you had an excellent quarterback on the Dolphins, we wouldn't be sitting here going, well, the Bills are number 1 in that division.
They'll be contending.
Yeah, right.
You go to the Super Bowl.
And what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that the Dolphins won't be better. Like, let's see what happens. That's what I mean. He's in year 2 now. Year 2 hasn't already happened yet.
So here's my question. I got a question for both of y'all. Mm-hmm. Do y'all think Dolphins fans and management for the Dolphins, do you think they made a mistake in not taking Justin Herbert?
Of course. But you know what?
Do you think it goes through their mind?
Justin Herbert just had arguably the greatest rookie season in the history of football. Like, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that's on a short list.
And all the games they lost were very close.
Because coming out, I had Herbert ahead of Tua in my eyes.
You had Herbert ahead of Tua.
Evaluating film. I had Herbert ahead of Tua.
Let's put it this way. If Trevor Lawrence lives up to all the hype, has an amazing rookie season, he'll be where Justin Herbert is now. Justin Herbert is what people are hoping Trevor Lawrence will be.
Exactly.
Like, Justin Herbert is an insane.
Yeah, they're different quarterbacks.
He has a chance to be outside of Mahomes and Rodgers, the best in the business by the end of this. He has a chance.
How much does it help him? They brought just you playing the receiver position. They brought in a couple receivers.
Well, it helps out a lot.
Waddle and Fuller.
It helps out a lot because you want guys that can win one-on-one. And that's in college, that's what he had. He had guys that can win one-on-one that can get separation. Now he has that. You have Devontae Parker as well. You have Fuller. You have Jalen Waddle, who I think is going to be in contention for Rookie of the Year because he can do it on punt returns, kick returns.
And also, like, if you can't throw it down the field, you have a little spot. Yeah, you can give it to him.
Go work.
Talk about, I mean, that dude's a short pass away from a touchdown.
If you're Miami, if it doesn't work out this year, what do you do when you have this kind of talent and now you have him?
You're going to have to draft a quarterback.
They have the draft capital. They have the draft capital to move up and draft a quarterback if needs be.
Yeah, they're going to have to draft a quarterback if Tua doesn't work out. By the way, he led those drives. He scored those. Those are scoring plays. He completed every pass and was missing a lot of guys that you just mentioned. It's not like everyone was playing. I'm just saying, Tua has not yet ruled himself out from being a star quarterback.
I told you, Max, I'm confident when I see it on a consistent basis. If I don't see it on a consistent basis, then I'm not going to be confident.
All right, fair enough. Guys, all eyes will be on the first 2 picks in the draft, but who will have the better career? Is it Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson? We got disagreement on this one for sure. Keep it locked.
I'm all for taking risks and taking shots.
Imagine hypothetically that I know what I'm doing.
You never know what can happen in these last couple of games. It's very tough to come to the crib, especially if I'm there.
No. You can't fight it. You know what's happening. You're trying to fight it.
After an unprecedented run of success with Tom Brady under center, the Patriots took a step back last season with Cam as their quarterback. The down year in 2020 led to the team drafting Mac Jones in the first round of April's draft, and the question on everybody's mind is who will be the Patriots starter this year. And breaking news out of New England, Cam Newton will remain away from the team until Thursday. This is due to a misunderstanding on COVID tests conducted away from NFL facilities, the club has announced. Of course, we know he had to deal with COVID last year. Here's Bill Belichick from this morning on the quarterback battle thus far.
The guys who have been there, somebody has to show that they're better than them, or that player has to be unavailable. All right, and that's the way it is at every position. It's not unique to any position. That's the way it is across the board. So that's you get players, that have an opportunity to gain playing time, regardless of who else is on the roster or what else is on the roster, by their performance. And that's the only way I know to do it. So that's the way I'm going to do it.
Okay, so you got to outplay someone or someone has to be hurt, and that's how you decide it, Max. Okay, so now you know how to do it. Mina Kimes back here with us. So, Max, talk to me. Do you think that the Patriots team will contend for a Super Bowl this year?
I do. I mean, when you say contend for a Super Bowl, do I think they can make the playoffs? Yes. Do I think they will? Yeah, I do. Do I think that they'll win a playoff game? I think, sure. I mean, they can. Is it impossible for them to win a Super Bowl? No, because there's some teams you look at, you go, they can't win a Super Bowl. I wouldn't say the Patriots are one of those teams, and I'll tell you why. Number one, their coach is Bill Belichick. He's the best, arguably the greatest coach in any sport of all time. Mm-hmm. He's in that argument. Number two, has your quarterback ever been to a Super Bowl? Yeah, he has. He was the MVP of the league. He was voted by his peers the greatest player in the world in the middle of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' prime. His peers said he's the best player in the world. And by the way, he won MVP and he was in the Super Bowl. Okay, now, was he a more physically dominant player at the time? Yeah, but you could argue under Norv Turner, later on he became a better passer from the pocket. And by the way, last year, came 2 plays away from winning 9 games on a team whose whole defense defected before the season because of COVID, who couldn't practice, whose facilities were shut down because of COVID, who had no preseason, off a catastrophic injury, brand new system, brand new teammates, so bereft of offensive weapons that Tom Brady said, I can't do this anymore. I don't like the way you're spending my money that I'm like redistributing here. I got to go. And still came 2 plays away from going 9-7, and they had some quality wins. Do I think Cam Newton's capable of it? Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. And then look what they did in the offseason. Bill Belichick spent money day 1 of free agency. And where did he spend the money? Like, what was, look at where they really spent money. Tight ends. Like, if you look at the Patriots' success, look at what they had at tight end the last couple of years. Yeah. And it's embarrassing. And they went out and got 2 talented guys and spent real money to do it. They can run the kind of offense they're used to running. Cam is a capable quarterback, or potentially a very capable quarterback, and their defense is back. I would not rule out Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
Now, Max, I hate I have to do this to you because I actually like you, Max. You're a good guy, but you have lost your damn mind this morning. You really have lost your mind. Max, number one, my first point. The Patriots will not compete for a Super Bowl simply because this fact. The last 19 years, not excluding last year, the last 19 years, the Patriots have swept through the AFC East, right? Teams have been so sorry that they just basically cakewalk through the AFC East.
Home playoff game and they're in the AFC Championship game.
That is not the case anymore, Max. You have the Bills. You have the Dolphins. You have
not the Jets.
Zach Wilson.
Not the Jets.
No. But you have a quarterback in Zach Wilson who's picked number 2 overall, so you just can't count the Jets out. Not saying that the Jets are going to contend. I'm just saying you can't count them out. So you have a division that's going to be tougher than it's ever been this year. Second, I will say this. You have more teams in the AFC to contend now. Mm-hmm. You have the Titans, and we've seen what they did defensively. We've seen what they did with Julio Jones bringing him in. You have the Browns. You have Baker Mayfield, who I think is due for a breakout season this year. We've seen that breakout season from Mahomes. We've seen it from Lamar Jackson. We've seen it from Josh Allen. I think it's Baker Mayfield's time to have a breakout season. Why? Because he's ready for that payday. Then you have the Ravens. I would never count the Ravens out because of the makeup in their MO, right? Tough, fast, physical, dominate you. That's who they are. But lastly, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. So I don't think that's 4 teams right there in the AFC that I have over the Patriots right now.
Yeah, Mina?
I feel like I got to split the middle here because I love what the Patriots did this offseason. I particularly love their defense. We spend so much time talking about Mac versus Cam. I said Cam-Mac or whatever. Forget about it. It doesn't really matter who's playing quarterback. If this team is a playoff team, and like Max, I do believe they are a playoff team, it'll be because of their defense. They get everyone back. Dante Hightower, the quarterback of the defense, still an elite secondary, and more importantly, finally, that pass rush, that front 7 is going to look like some of the old front 7s of yore. I mean, from these preseason games, again, everyone's been so obsessed with the quarterbacks, we've ignored the fact that Matt Judon looks like a perfect fit in this system. His ability to drop into coverage, his versatility up front. He's a Bill Belichick dream. Josh Uche is going to make the leap. I would not be surprised if this is a top 5 unit in the NFL. But I cannot pick them to win the Super Bowl when they're not even the best team in their division. Harry's right. The Bills are a better team. The Ravens are a better team. The Chiefs are a better team. I'll throw the Browns in there as well. So at best, I view the Pats as the 5th best team in the AFC. Again, they are a playoff team. They're going to be a heck of a lot better than they were last year. But Super Bowl, there's just too many rosters that are more complete than they are.
But the best team doesn't always win. The hottest team, the healthiest team. The point is, if you have a winning formula and you get hot in the playoffs, if you acknowledge they can make the playoffs, I wouldn't rule them out. Now, I want to get to Harry's point for a second because I think it's a good one about the Chiefs. How do you get by the Chiefs? Patriots don't have to get by the Chiefs necessarily. Per Warren Sharp Analytics, the way to beat the Chiefs is by outscoring them, right? Like, that's why the Bills are the best. I mean, outscoring any team, yes, but you got to put points up on the board. When you had, I think it was 13 points in the first half, the Chiefs are something like 11-8. So they're not much better than 500. And when you score under 13 points in the first half, you are like 1 out of 34. So it's impossible to beat them. So that doesn't sound like the Patriots to me against the Chiefs, but someone else can play traffic cop with the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs could lose to someone else, leaving the path clear for the Patriots. I agree, you can find teams where on paper right now you say that team has a better chance. But the Patriots are one of a handful, half dozen teams you look at and you go, or at least I look at and I go, they have a shot. And I will tell you why more than anything else. Bill Belichick is a great coach. Bill Belichick with time to game plan? Like Bill Belichick where he can focus all his energy? What was the real difference in the Patriots? Obviously Tom Brady. But no preseason, no practice. Practice facilities shut down. A whole bunch of players lost. A brand new quarterback. And Belichick still managed to squeeze 7, very nearly 9 games out of that. Now you have a preseason. You're going to have practice. You're going to have your practice facilities. You have your defenders back. Mina brought up what they did on defense. You have talent on the offensive side of the ball, and you still got Belichick. Count him out at your own peril.
Now, Max, I've always been a great listener, and I've listened to everything that you just said. And the main thing that you said is that the way to beat the Chiefs is by outscoring them. There's no way in hell that you think that the New England Patriots is going to outscore the Kansas City Chiefs.
Correct.
Right or wrong?
Correct.
Then how are they going to beat them?
But they don't. That's what I'm saying. They don't have to beat them. Someone else can knock off the Chiefs, and the Patriots could match up well with that team.
I agree that the Patriots could match up well with any of the other teams in the AFC because one thing I love about the Pats, and I realize I'm kind of contradicting myself here because I'm going to make a case for them, they're zigging whereas the rest of the NFL is zagging. Harry, where's the NFL going? Pass, 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 play nickel and dime, throw the ball, spread them out, 11 wide receivers. The Patriots on offense are going to ground and pound. They've got these tight ends. You're going to see a lot of 12 personnel, and I actually think they're going to benefit from all of these light defenses in the league, and I love that about the strategy they've taken to the offseason.
Mina Kimes, I am so glad you brought up that point. Why? Because that's who the Baltimore Ravens are. That's who the Cleveland Browns are. That's who the Tennessee Titans are. All the teams that we named over the Patriots.
Well,
my point exactly.
Tennessee, you got to worry about the defense, and the other two are
No, you don't have to worry about the defense. They made moves in the offseason on their defense.
We'll see. The point is, I would say I'm not banking on Tennessee having a very good defense. I would say the Patriots, Ravens, and Browns will have good defenses to one degree or another. But I would say, the Browns are live. The Ravens are live. And the Patriots are live.
And you know what all these teams have that the Patriots don't have? Certainty at the quarterback position, because we still don't know who's going to be under center in New England. And I'm going to hold off Super Bowl, judgment until we've got some certainty about that.
But certainty, if we knew that Cam Newton was what he once was, even if you can't trust the passing consistently, whatever, then we wouldn't be having the same conversation right now. We don't know, once upon a time, Cam Newton's best receiver was his tight end. His two best receivers are both tight ends now, and he was his own best running back, right? So it's going to get better there for Cam Newton. I also mentioned earlier, I thought he became a better passer than ever under Norv Turner. I thought he was better from the pocket. And so, is it possible that he puts it all together? Sure. Mina, if we knew it for sure, we wouldn't be having this debate. What would I put the odds? Better or worse than 50-50? I say better than 50-50 that the Patriots are contenders.
Yeah. Belichick's going to have a heck of a chip on his shoulder after he saw what Brady did. And let's not forget, in 9 days, I think he spent $160 million to overhaul this team.
50 on the tight end.
And they never spend money like that.
Got tired of losing.
By the way, Harry, you sound like Kevin Hart.
Everyone says
all
that.
Show I was like,
this.
Who does
Everyone
he sound
says
like?
that. I get that so much.
Who does he sound like? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Much taller though.
It's Kevin Hart.
Way taller. I'm 6'1".
All right, guys. Is it a lock that Trevor Lawrence will have the best career